This is our second InDesign webinar. We've had, I think, about 6 people register for this specific webinar. I don't know what it is, but I feel like everyone registered for the October one, so we have like over 20 people on that one. Not sure what September is. Maybe it's just busy, but with a small crowd, you guys can definitely feel free. I'll try to do some, like, I'll discuss a topic, then pause, and then you can feel free to unmute yourself, ask your specific question, or you can also just kind of use that chat button down there. Especially if you have a specific question and you don't want to forget it, just feel free to type it in there and we'll kind of go from that. So let me zoom this. So our main goal for these InDesign webinars are really just to help you and your design team to really just take your designs to the next level. With Lucipress, we know like you guys are absolutely amazing with InDesign, with Photoshop, and all those other different design tools. But unfortunately, you know, not everyone is a great designer, or they just don't know how to use those other design tools. So what's really great about Lucipress is the ability to actually make all these different templates from your amazing designs. And with templates, you know, they're really transformative for you and your organization just because they're more scalable. So instead of, you know, waiting anywhere from a few days to maybe a couple of weeks to get a design, someone can actually use one of your specific templates, swap out content, change whatever is unlocked, and they can, you know, just quickly make what they need. So this is really just kind of the main purpose, just kind of as a higher overview of everything. With InDesign import, a lot of that is really a lot faster. The InDesign import is not perfect, which is why we're trying to provide as many materials as we can to kind of make that InDesign import, you know, as seamless as possible, provide as many tips and resources that you guys can use. So kind of our agenda for the call, we're just going to do some very quick introductions. We're then going to review the import process. From there, we'll just dive into how to make edits, then locking, and then just some tips for converting to a template. So depending on, you know, we have some people registered for these webinars who have used Lucipress, you know, a lot and are very familiar with it. We also have people who are brand new to Lucipress. So we're trying to cover a lot of different subjects. So just kind of know if you already know how to import a file, we'll try to give you as many tips on how to make edits or locking. So just feel free to kind of zone out on the parts that you know already, but we'll definitely give you some tips and try to help you learn something new. So just kind of give myself an introduction. My name is Tyson. I'm on the customer success team here at Lucipress. I've been here a little over than a year and a half, and I work a ton in InDesign and just importing files for other customers. So I'm just very familiar with kind of the different strategies and kind of some tips of how to make the import a lot faster. So feel free, there's my email there if you guys have any specific questions. I'll also send out an email right after this with a link to the recording of this call, also some other helpful resources. So feel free to just reply to that email if you do have additional questions. And then we kind of already covered this. If you guys do have questions, just put it in the chat box down below. Also, we'll just kind of pause and then you can unmute yourself and just ask it. So either way. So let's practice with an InDesign file that I have. I actually just did a quick Google search for a free InDesign template. And it worked out perfectly. The one we're going to do today is very, I don't know, just a good example of some different, I don't know, settings that you might have to adjust. So I think this one is a really tricky one. Not all InDesign files are this hard, but I think this is just a really good one to kind of just review. So let me zoom out of here. And we'll swap over to this screen. Cool. So to begin your InDesign import, you will need to package your InDesign file. If you didn't know, InDesign kind of pulls images from where the original file is located. It also pulls fonts that are installed on your computer. So when you package an InDesign file, it will automatically create a nice folder with all of your different links and all of your fonts. So this is what a package InDesign file looks like. You'll get an IDML, INDD, a PDF, and then these other two folders with the fonts and the images. To package an InDesign file, all you'd have to do is open InDesign, and then you just click File, Package. If you shouldn't have to change any of the default settings when you do that. I have had a few customers, they'll send me over their InDesign files, and it won't include like the PDF, or sometimes it's missing like the links folder. So just kind of make sure there's like a little checkbox that says to include like the images or the PDF. So just kind of make sure you have those checked, but they should be on by default if they don't. So we're just going to import this file and just kind of show what it looks like. One tip that I have, even before you start your InDesign imports, is to go to your brand assets section and get your colors all organized, your images, which this is really just kind of a special section for your logos. So if all of your logos are in there, it'll just make it a lot smoother. Also, fonts. We're going to kind of talk a lot about fonts on this call today, but just upload your fonts to the brand assets section and then start your InDesign import. It's just going to make it a lot easier, and then you can just quickly identify which fonts are missing and then which ones you need to re-upload in this section. So I'll kind of talk a little bit more about fonts, but just wanted to kind of show that as the first tip for this webinar. So to begin your import, we're going to go to My Documents. Right here we have the InDesign button. This is kind of how I organize my account. I'll make folders for like in progress, template ready, and I'll share out these folders with other members from your team. So if you have more than one graphic designer importing InDesign files, definitely kind of make some folders in there so you can keep content organized, share those folders out, and then they'll have access to all of the documents, obviously in those folders. So really it's just kind of up to you how you organize it, but I just find this is what works for me and this is kind of what I do. So we'll just go directly to InDesign import. You'll get this message box. It'll tell you, you definitely need to package your InDesign file and convert it. So we're going to click continue, then import, and we're just going to locate the file on our desktop and select that. So what this window is doing is it's going to pull in just the InDesign file. It's going to get all of your different layers, all of your different objects, and it's going to import those. So we're going to click open. It's creating that document, and you'll get this pop-up box that will now ask you to connect all of your missing fonts and then any of your missing images. So for fonts, definitely complicated. You have kind of three different sources where fonts are being pulled from. You have the actual font file itself. Then you have how InDesign is interpreting that font. And then you have how Lucipress is interpreting the font. So you kind of have these three different, conflicting, ways of reading the font. And so honestly, this is where the bulk of my time is kind of spent, is trying to figure out how to get the fonts to work. So if you've ever, run into the problem where if you click upload, you go to the links folder, document fonts. I just like to select all of them, and we're gonna click open. If you have a specific font that won't actually match, or maybe it's not matching correctly, that's a problem where it's, related to the font file. It's just, for whatever reason, somewhere in either the InDesign file or Lucipress, it's trying to read the font but not matching it correctly. That's something we can definitely help out. I actually have installed on my computer this software called FontForge. So this really allows me to edit the font file itself, and what I can do is actually edit a font file so that it'll match with what Lucipress is trying to identify. So if you do have this issue, email me, email our support team, you would definitely want to attach like a package InDesign file just so we can have an example and make sure it's working correctly. And then we can just edit that font for you so that you won't have those font issues, hopefully. I know that fixes probably 95% of font errors. So definitely have the biggest issue. Again, I want to reiterate the importance of uploading your fonts. So you just saw I just uploaded fonts in this window. This means that those fonts are only showing up on my account. So if I share this out with my other graphic designer and they open this file, they won't have access to those fonts. So you need to make sure that you go back and upload your fonts to the brand section. This is what allows the rest of the team to have access to those fonts. So that's something that's a little bit tricky, and sometimes you don't realize it until way down the road when you have your templates and then a user's like, hey, like I'm getting all these error messages because I'm missing a font. That's just because you haven't uploaded it yet to your brand section. For missing images, really easy. You can just click upload. We're going to go back to our links folder and select all of them. And we always get the question of which image types are supported. We support JPEG, PNG, and SVG files. So if you're really looking for like a vector-based format of an image, use SVGs. I know it's very, very common to use EPS. That's something I see probably, I don't know, every InDesign file. Just kind of get in the habit of starting to use SVGs instead, because EPS files are not supported in LucidPress. I've done some research just because our engineers have said that EPS files are not secure for kind of a web-based platform like LucidPress. And that is something that I've have found. EPS files are just super old. They've kind of been there since, I don't know, forever. So they're just not up to kind of the same standards as the web today. And so, yeah, they work great on like Photoshop and other Adobe products because it's installed on your computer, but they do kind of have more issues when it's related to kind of a web-based platform. So with EPS, you kind of have two options: convert them to like a PNG. Usually I kind of do that the most because it's probably the quickest. And then the other option would be just convert it to an SVG. So if you want to keep it as that vector format, SVGs will work great. PNGs, for the most part, I kind of get some pushback like, they're not a vector, they might appear blurry, but if you're doing like a small project, like an 8.5 by 11 flyer or a business card, a PNG will work fine. So just kind of make sure it's a big PNG, you'll be okay. So we're gonna click open, and all of those images are now going to match. If I had an EPS file, that would not technically, match. It would still say that that image is missing. And so what you would do is just click skip, and then you would just drag and drop the new PNG or SVG. We do support PDFs. You can upload those, as well as Photoshop, Illustrator, TIFF files. Just kind of know with those file types, we automatically convert them to a JPEG. So if you don't want that white background, or maybe it's not coming in with kind of the correct colors, that's usually what I've seen with like TIFF files, you want to probably convert it to like a JPEG or a PNG. So this is a good time to stop. I see there's a few questions in the chat. So let's see here. Okay, so we have from Garrett, one of my brand fonts did that most of the time, but I updated the font file and now it works now. Need EPS support. Amen. I know it's probably on my wish list as well. I'll definitely tell our engineers. We have like a massive like feature request sheet that we use. And so as more and more people are kind of requesting it, we have this nice dashboard that kind of shows like, hey, this many people are starting to request EPS files. So that is something that I've kept track of. And literally, I say like 90% of my files have EPS images in there. AI, we answered that. So we will support them. They just will be converted to JPEG. So yeah, can't do AI either. SVG only vector supported. I recommend converting to a PNG. Yes, perfect. Sounds good. Any other additional questions that you guys have about images or fonts or importing the InDesign file? Cool. Sounds good. Okay, so I'm gonna expand this back. So this one, man, this one is a little scary, but we're just gonna kind of review. There's so many like good tips with this file, so hopefully you can kind of learn something new. So what I usually do, I have two monitors, so I usually open the PDF in another window just so I can have it open at all times and just compare back and forth. This is why I think having the PDF is just super helpful to have. So obviously looking at this PDF, it looks totally different than what's, it's supposed to look like. So we're just going to kind of quickly breeze through a lot of these different aspects, and you'll see it's a lot faster than you might think. So plus buttons, very similar to InDesign. It just means you have a text box here, but it's not quite big enough to fit all of the text. So you just have to click on it or expand it manually, and you'll see all of that text. So we're just going to quickly do that with all of the plus buttons. Also, I don't know if you guys noticed, we released, I think it was last week, a fix for the plus buttons. Before, it would try to just like expand it a little bit in the hopes that it would fit all of the text. But now we've actually fixed it where it, for the most part, populates that whole text box. So it's kind of nice. You just have to click the plus once and then it'll expand. And then this logo in the corner, to be honest, I have no clue what they did in this InDesign file, but I'm just going to delete it since that's not my logo, so I don't plan on using it. Any red triangles will be really quick, just kind of highlight where a missing font is. So this is where it's kind of weird, where it's like I uploaded the fonts, but it's still, having an issue where it's not finding, that missing font. So in this case, if I just look at the InDesign file, I can tell that this is supposed to be that same font above. And so what you can do, there's one really cool tip that I have. You can right click on a text box and you can copy the style of that text box. And then you can paste it to another text box. Just kind of know it'll literally paste like the exact same style. So this one was like right aligned. So it changed it to right aligned, but very quickly I can just paste it in there, change the alignment, and then I'm pretty much good to go. So I love that feature. Just right click, copy style. And then that's kind of it with the triangles and the plus buttons. Now we're just going to kind of fix a little bit of these wonky images going on. So it looks like at first glance you're like, hey, none of the images pulled in. But on this InDesign file, what they did is they had a gradient from like this dark blue to probably transparent. So gradients have a really hard time in LucidPress. Let me see if I can pull up. I have InDesign kind of ready to go. Let's get this window better. If I just do a blank document real quick, there's kind of a few different ways you can add gradients to your specific object in InDesign. I think there's like one way, I don't remember where it is, somewhere over here on the right, where you can kind of change the colors and make it a gradient. And for whatever reason, those colors are not supported in LucidPress. So what it does, kind of what you see here, it converts it to just one color instead of a gradient. But if you use the gradient swatch tool over here, it will pull in your gradients into LucidPress. So just kind of know if you're using gradients a lot, start kind of changing your designs in InDesign to use this specific gradient. So So, but to change it is not too bad. So let's go over here to fill. We're going to change it to a linear gradient. And Lucipress will just kind of pick like 3 different colors in there. Usually the middle one is the one that's like the original. So I'm just going to slide that over, change this color to transparent. And then it looks, pretty good. I'm actually going to kind of make it, change the angle maybe a little bit. But other than that, like, not too bad. And then maybe I'll change the opacity maybe, so it's not quite as dark. The one challenging part with this image, now we can actually see this image. So if I like move this gradient down a little bit, this image was rotated in InDesign. And so Lucipress is a little bit complicated. It's also on my wish list of things to do for the engineers to do, man. If we rotate this, there we go. Kind of have to hover in a special spot. There we go. If we rotate this, you can tell it's only showing that angle down here at the bottom, and it's supposed to be at the top. And the image is supposed to be flipped. And this is just where, you just have this issue where we have all of these different shapes, but we don't have that specific shape. So what you could do is maybe play around with this one to try to get it exactly like that one. But honestly, like, I'm all about saving time. So what I would do is just open your InDesign file, select just that image, and then you would export it as a PNG. That way you can just quickly, boom, add it to Lucipress. It's exactly how it's supposed to be in that same shape, and then you won't have to kind of worry about it. So that's probably the fastest way to kind of get that done. That's usually what I recommend. The other option would be you would just create an SVG shape that's like this, and then you would just say, okay, I want to fill that shape with an image. And so that would give you the same effect. So this one's a really good one just because it's really kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit because we don't have those specific shapes, especially for like an image that's like flipped and rotated. So it just gets a little bit complicated. So I'm just going to leave this one like that for right now. This one, also a gradient. So I'm just going to quickly change that. We're going to change that one to transparent, delete that, move that, and then it's supposed to be 90. There we go. So that one looks pretty good. I'm just going to kind of leave it like that. So then we have that, and then this image, it just looks like we need to rotate it. Oh, that's the gradient. There we go. There we go. So that image looks pretty good. So we might need to crop it. So we're going to go over here to the right, click crop, and then what's really nice is you can kind of move it. You can kind of see what the crop boundary box is and then kind of align it. So with that image, very quick and easy to kind of fix it. And then here is again, man, this one just had a ton of different gradients that they added in here. So it's just kind of a lot of different changes you have to make. So definitely recommend just making the gradients a lot easier if you change it in InDesign. So, and it looks like we have a question, so I'm just going to pause here and just kind of make sure. How did you get the gradient option? Yeah, so hopefully you caught that. It's just you click on the fill. So almost all of our edits are going to be on the right panel. That's my other tip. We try to put like some of these quick settings up here at the top, but I honestly just kind of ignore them and I just use the right panel since it has everything. So if you click the fill, then you can change it to a linear, a radial, an image, or a solid color. So that's kind of the best way to get to there. Cool, so let's just keep focusing on this first page. The other thing that you're gonna have to make edits to is almost always line spacing. And this is just something that InDesign measures line spacing extremely different than literally any other software out there. I don't know why they have to be specifically different on this, but they are. So very quickly, you can select a text box if you have the text tab open, you can go over to spacing. We kind of have all these different spacing options, but for the most part, I just kind of use this main one, and that just increases the line spacing of the entire, text box. So I don't know, maybe like 1.4 looks pretty good. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And then these letters are more spaced out. I think that's called kerning in InDesign. And so that's actually just under spacing as well. And it has this little symbol. And we just call it character spacing. So if you just increase it, maybe to 120, that looks pretty good. And then here's, again, a really good example of where you could copy style, paste it over here, and then that one's done. I mean, move it over there, but, and then we can do the same thing with this other page, paste style, paste style. Cool. This one as well, man, line spacing on this one. So we'll just kind of increase that a little bit. And then you might have to adjust. Oh wait, this one has character spacing, so maybe not. I don't know, that one might be 110. Yeah, we'll just do 120 as well. You might have to adjust a little bit of the text box size, kind of see like extras supposed to be on the next line. So I'm just gonna, maybe I'll just put a space or something. Students, outstanding, perfect. So that one looks good. We'll move it up a little bit. And then we'll focus on this paragraph as well. Increase that. Now we have to increase the text box a little bit. And then that looks good. Cool. So this is kind of, it doesn't take too much time. It is a little bit, you kind of have to make these adjustments, but it's not too bad. So this one, it looks like it just didn't pull in that font for whatever reason. I do like this one because it is a little bit crazy. So I'm just pasting in the style again and just changing it to white since it's basically the same size and everything. So, and then this one, increase line spacing, and that one looks good. And so you can do the same thing with that one. And then let's see what this box is. I think for the most part, the second page was about the same, where you kind of have that gradient over here. The image needs to be rotated, some line spacing. Also, same thing here. The image is hidden back there. And then you kind of have to change this font. So for the most part, that's usually what I've seen. Most of your edits will be fonts and line spacing, and then sometimes images. So depending on, if you have these kind of crazy different shapes that they're in, that's usually kind of where most of that time will come. So any questions with making edits or just kind of reviewing a little bit of, maybe you've done an InDesign import already and you've kind of seen something weird where it just like doesn't come in right. See. Fill a shape. So I have a question. Can you show how to fill a shape with an image? Yes. So let's go over here. So we're just going to do a blank page just so you can kind of see how this works. Circled is pretty common, what I've seen. So we'll just make this a bit bigger. If you wanted to fill this with an image, I believe you can drag and drop. You can drag and drop, let's just do it just to make sure. Yeah. So very easy, just drag and drop, and then it'll fill it in there. If you needed to crop it, if you click the crop button, that will allow you to like zoom in or kind of reposition it a little bit so that it looks a lot better. If you're using a shape that appears in our shape library, the drag and drop will work. If you're doing like an SVG, like your own kind of unique shape, the drag and drop I don't think will work. And that's when you will have to go up to like the fill, or you can click, let me do another shape. You'll go over to fill, and then change it to an image. That same option is up here at the top, fill, and then with an image. So you'd only have to do that if you have your own custom SVG shape that you would want to fill. So really, really good question. Oops, let's see. Cool. So the next part that we're going to jump into is all about, taking this design that you have and making it so that it can be a template for the rest of your team. So I have on this slide deck, which I'll also send out in the email for you guys all to have, is kind of a template checklist. So I kind of go through these different items every single time that I make a template for my team. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is add smart fields, then provide notes, just so that your team members can have kind of a little bit of guidance as they're changing images or text or something. And then you can also create page templates. This isn't always the case, but we'll kind of talk about it. And then apply locking. So let's just kind of talk a little bit about smart fields. If you're really new to LucidPress, smart fields are kind of like our term for being able to pull in data automatically to your document. So if we had in this specific flyer, I don't know, if we go over here to contact, if we had a specific person's like name, their email, their phone number in here, we can have that information automatically pull from whoever's logged in and just automatically show their name, phone number, and email. So that would be a really good example of profile smart fields. So we have 4 different types. So if we go up here to insert smart fields, you can see we have these different types in here. So profile, kind of as what it refers to, it means whoever's logged into LucidPress, whoever's account, it will pull in their address, their cell phone, email. We kind of have all these different default ones. You can also have it pull in their specific logo or their profile image. So something pretty cool. I would only do this if that specific person is the one that's always creating the template. If you have like maybe, I don't know, like a secretary or somebody else who's making the flyer or the business card for somebody else, then maybe profile smart fields wouldn't be the best. You could still use them obviously and then just leave the text box unlocked and then they can just kind of replace it with whatever information, but definitely use smart fields or profile smart fields if that person is actually making the content. If there is, we only have these fields. If there's a field that you would like to add, like maybe department, you can add your own custom smart field. So that button down there, as soon as you add your own custom smart field, it's treated the exact same as a profile smart field, and it'll show up right there. The next kind of profile or the smart field that we have is called a team smart field. This is kind of information that would be the same across every single user on your account. So really this is good, a good spot to put like your company name or like the headquarter address or the main phone number. I've seen other customers will use like their terms of service. They'll have that be a smart field so they don't have to like type it in every single time. It's just automatically pulled in on every document. What's really nice about Team Smart Fields, I honestly don't use it a lot, but if you do have something like a terms of service or your address, if you ever, I don't know, change locations, you could go into your Team Smart Fields, edit the address, and then that address would update across every single template that has that Team Smart Field. Same thing with terms of service. So if you down the road changed it a little bit, had a little bit different wording in there, you can make that change and it'll update across all content. So team, just kind of know it'll appear for every single user. So it's really just kind of used for main corporate information. Property listings and kind of this locations one is grouped together in our 4th type of smart field. So this is what is called data automation. And I don't know how much you guys already know about data automation, but it's seriously awesome and very powerful. So to access it, you would go over here, kind of on this main homepage of LucidPress, click on it, and then here's where you can manage all of your different data sources. So we can connect to Google Sheets. So if you have like, this is really common in like real estate, if you have like a Google Sheet of every single property you're trying to sell, you can pull in that Google Sheet and you'll have access to all that data on your templates. I've also seen people use it for like locations. So if you have different locations with all of these different addresses and contact information, you can have that pulled in. I've also seen people use this for like employee directories. So you can have a list of every single employee with all of their contact information, their title and everything, have it pull into LucidPress. And then if you wanted to make a business card for John, you can click on John's name, just kind of, it'll be like its own personal view like Google Sheets. You'd click on that row, apply it to the business card, all of John's information would be pulled in. If you wanted to swap it out with Sarah's information, you'd click on her row and then it'll apply to the whole business card. So really powerful, and I honestly wish I had more time to kind of review data automation, but I'll send an article to it that really is very in-depth and of how to use data automation and kind of different ideas of what you can use for it. But just wanted to give you a little taste of what is available and how you can connect it. So any questions with these 4 types of smart fields? And if not, here is how you would add a smart field to your document. So we have this contact us. I'm going to have it pull in from person's profile. So that means I want it to show my phone number since I'm using this template. So I'm just going to highlight the phone number, go up to Insert, Smart Fields, and then go to Profile. And then I'm going to say, yeah, let's use cell phone. And so you can see it's already pulling in my phone number, kind of showing it in there. Same thing if I do this with email, Insert, Smart Fields, Email, it's going to pull in that email. Now if someone else logs in, they want access to this template, it'll automatically show their email and their phone number. So really cool, very easy to kind of add those smart fields in. So let's see, and I do have a question right here. Will you have another seminar on data automation? That is something that we've talked about a lot. Since this is like our second webinar on InDesign, we've thought like, why not expand it to like different topics? So that is something that's definitely on our radar, and I honestly would love to do that. So yeah, we'll keep you guys posted on that. So that's how you insert a smart field. Just know not every single template will require smart fields, but if you do want to take advantage of that feature, it's really nice and pretty quick to add. So the next thing is going to be providing notes. So this is a really great feature that I don't think a lot of you guys know about. So let's say with this image, I want to give specific instructions for whoever's using this template. You can right click and then go to add a note. And so it'll give this little like dialog box. You can type in like, I usually put like instructions, and then you can just do like, I don't know, bullet points of like, to change the image, double click, wow, if I can spell, or drag and drop. And then what's really cool, you can also format this, kind of make it unique with your branding. It also makes it size 9. I'm not sure why it's so tiny, but so what's really cool is these notes will not really appear on the document itself. Obviously, if you're printing it, it's not going to show those notes, but you'll have this kind of really cool just button there. So if they have a specific question, they can kind of view those instructions that you've provided for them. So this would be really good. You can put notes on like how to print something. So if you have like a very specific print vendor that's, maybe you have like a big like banner or something and you only want it to be printed at one specific spot, maybe put instructions in there of where they should email it to. You can put instructions for, obviously like this, like how to change out an image, a text box. If you have something weird with like these gradients, sometimes with the gradients I have seen like it'll cover the entire image. And so if they try to double click, it's clicking technically on the gradient. And so it's not letting them double click. So you might have to put instructions like, oh, you should move the gradient down a little bit. Then you can have access to the image, and then remember to put back the gradient to where it was. I don't know, something like that. So those are some examples. So I love using notes. It's really good and just kind of a best practice to kind of teaching your end users and just making their lives a lot easier. Because we know if we make the templates easy for them to use, then they'll use it. The next part is creating page templates. So this is also something that not every template will have page templates, but it's a really cool feature. So let's say we have this trifold, but maybe the inside cover, we have different versions or different options that someone can use. So let's just make another example here. Maybe I have one that has one image and then maybe one, I don't know, this looks terrible, but we'll say one version has a big image and the other version is more text heavy, so it doesn't have that text, that second image on this page. So what's really cool, you can design both of these different versions, and then once you're done, you can right click on the page, and then we're going to say create template from this page. And so here's where you can title, like, okay, maybe this is, I don't know, what is it? Inside page with image. And then this page template will now be available over here on the left side if you click on page. So then if we add this one as well, we'll just say this is inside page, oh my goodness, no image. Both of those will show up, and what I typically do is I don't know, I usually delete at least one of them, and then maybe like add a note that says, hey, there's another version over on the left side if you click page, and then they can say, oh, I can actually use this one, and they click it and it'll add that page to the document. So pretty cool. I've seen a lot of people use this for like postcards. Maybe like the front page is the exact same, but then the back page has like a ton of different versions they can pick from. That could be something that's very common. Business cards, you know, maybe you have different versions of all of your different business cards. Those could be a good example. I've also seen people, they'll actually delete both pages and they'll put like just a text box in here that says, to choose your back page, you know, click, you know, on the left. So they'll kind of have this instructions page and then it says like, hey, delete this page when you're done. So you can kind of do it either way, either with the notes or with a kind of this blank page that they can delete and kind of have access to. So both will work. So any questions with how page templates work? Cool. So the very last step will be to apply locking to each of your different layers in your file. And then it looks like we might have a chat, so let me just double check that. Okay. Yeah, I really like page templates. I think they're really cool. So the last thing that you can do with locking, so here's my pro tip, screenshot this if you have to, because I think it's such a time saver. The fastest way to lock things is up here in the top. There's a few other places, like you can right click and then go to lock. That's sometimes fast. You can also go over to the layout tab and then go to lock. So you kind of have different ways you can get to it, but honestly, I think the top is the fastest. So what you do is click on a layer, click the lock, and then here's where you would screenshot. Like, you get this window, and then right in the corner, it's kind of sneaky, it has this like pin icon. So if you click on that, it will keep the lock window open. So I absolutely love this, and it just lets you just quickly lock down all of your different objects by keeping that window open. So let's say with this image, I want to lock down the size and position so that they're not moving it, they're not resizing it. I want it to fit in exactly that same spot. Then I can lock down the style, which is really nice. You can kind of see over here on the side. It'll kind of like gray out, so you can tell they can't add a shadow, they can't add a border or change the opacity. So that's what's referring to by style for the image. For content always refers to what is inside of this box. So for an image, obviously it's that image. So if you don't want them to swap out the image, you would lock down content. However, if you do want them to have the option to like double click on the image and replace it with a new one, then that's where you would leave content unlocked. Very similar, for text boxes. So you can lock down the size and position. What's really nice about this is it makes sure that they're not typing in, like a, 2-page paragraph. We want them to just keep it very simple and light, especially for this trifold. For style, you can fully lock down the style and kind of see literally every option is going to be grayed out, so they can't change the font or the size. But we also have all these different subsections that you can lock. So I know a lot of people, they're like, hey, you can use bold and underline or something like that. You can change the font size. So you can kind of unlock a few of these. So they can kind of make a little bit of adjustments. They can change the color. Just know they'll only have access to your brand colors if there's kind of additional lock settings that's only found in the brand assets. So if you go to brand assets, settings, these kind of have some bonus locking settings that you can apply. So if I go down here, enable non-brand colors for all users, I'll be like, heck no, I only want them to have access to these colors that I'm going to upload. You can also say, no, I don't want them to use any non-brand fonts. I only want them to use these fonts. So that's kind of something that will help you as you're locking things down. Like maybe you don't have to be as strict in the actual file itself, knowing that they're only going to have access to those fonts and they're only going to have access to those brand colors. So that's kind of my tip there. Content, again, refers to what's in the box. So if you leave that unlocked, they can come in here, they can delete this paragraph, type, whatever they need to. If this is kind of a standard paragraph that you don't want them messing with, then you can lock down content. Now they won't be able to edit the text in this box. So that's kind of a brief overview of locking. It's very simple. If you hover over this icon, it'll kind of tell you what's being locked down. So if you do have questions on like specifics, but for the most part, you'll kind of see over here what's grayed out. We have a question, is there a way to see how many words are in a text box? We've had a few people ask about that, especially like to be able to lock down like maybe how many words or characters. There's not really a way to see how many words are in a text box. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, because we just like don't have like a word count feature. So that's kind of where maybe it would be handy to kind of lock down the size and position. So let's say, I don't know, let's just start typing in this box, just so you can kind of see what it looks like. You'll get like this plus button because it's meaning there's more text that's extending, but it's overflowing and it's not expanding down. So if you lock the size and position, they won't be able to resize the box. And so it kind of helps them be like, oh, I need to delete that sentence or two and make sure that it fits within that size. But very good question. I can also add that to our feature request, just kind of like a word count. I do kind of see how that could be very helpful to have. Cool. So with the 8 minutes remaining, we're just going to cover a little bit more of the locking, and then we'll kind of jump into templates, the actual converting of it. So be sure to lock down literally every text box, all of your different shapes and images. One really quick way you can do that is by clicking on this gray part. If you hold and then drag, it just lets you quickly select all of the layers on your file. So I can say, boom, I'm just going to lock down everything, and then say, oh, really the only thing that they're changing is this contact us. So maybe I'll say unlock that. And then maybe the images. So that's kind of like a really quick way to kind of get stuff done. If you know a lot of it's going to be locked anyways, you can just lock everything, then unlock what needs to be unlocked. The other thing that you can lock down are the pages themselves. So if you have this window open already, you'll see page lock. You can also right click and then go to lock. You can kind of see those exact same lock settings. But since I have this window open, that's why I like it so much. That's what I'm going to use. So you can say prevent this page from being deleted. So this is where page templates really kind of comes hand in hand with kind of these locking options. So definitely our front cover, we want to make sure that they don't delete it. But those other pages, you know, we want them to be able to swap out the inside page with a different template. So we're going to prevent them from adding additional content. So this means, you know, yes, they can swap out the images, they can come in here, they can change the text box, but if they add like a new heading in here, they'll get this error message that says, hey, additional content cannot be added. Same thing with like images. If they wanted to add like an image over here in the corner, they're going to get an error message and it won't let them. So very handy to just kind of make sure that they're not adding more content than you want them to. Locking properties and settings, that just kind of locks down the different page settings so they can't change the page size or the background color, the margins. So that's something that I usually do. Just kind of double check that they're not changing that. And then if we click on this gray part again, we'll get the document lock settings, and this will prevent them from adding and deleting all pages. So in this case, since I have page templates, I won't want to turn on this setting because watch, I'll try to click on it and it says, hey, you can't add pages anymore. So I'll want to leave that unlocked, but maybe on certain templates, you absolutely don't want them adding like a blank page and then just going crazy. So that's something where it could be very handy, prevent adding or deleting pages. And they'll try to add a page and it just won't let them. So locking is something I recommend doing very, very last because it is kind of a pain when you're like, oh, I actually want to change this. And then you have to go back to the lock, unlock it, change it, then lock it again. So just kind of do it very last. Make sure you get input from all of your different team members, and then you can lock everything down. So the very final step, this template, holy cow, we've imported it from InDesign. We've made our edits. We've added smart fields and notes, page templates, and our locking. It's finally ready to now be converted to a template. So to do that, we're going to come over here to My Documents. We're going to find wherever the document is located, and we're just going to click More. And you have two different options for templates. You have Convert to Brand Template, which is what you'll use probably 95% of the time. This is what makes it available for your entire brand. And actually, it will move out from My Documents and move over to your template section. So I heavily recommend you'll almost always use this Convert to Brand Template option. Converting to a template, just kind of a normal template, this just means it's like your own personal template. It stays in your account. You will be the only one that have access to it. So this is something that really it's only you, like if you have like a specific template that you use a lot, you can just convert it to your own personal template. So we're going to click convert to brand template since that's what we want to do. You'll get this message box that will tell you like, hey, do you want to actually make a copy of it or just use the original? I usually I don't click make a copy. I just like to have the original live in the template section. That's just my personal preference, but you can kind of do whatever. We'll click next, and then you'll get this nice window where you can add all of your different tags for this specific template. I do recommend setting up these tags before you start converting any templates. If you do forget to do it, obviously you'll have like create new category, create new filters, so you can kind of create industry, content type, and then all the kind of different filters within those. So I can say, oh, this is higher ed. This is, oh, I don't have a trifold one. I'm going to type in that. So it's a trifold. So add whatever tags are relevant that will make it just easy for your end users to find that specific template. You can add a description. This is where it could be handy to say like, there are, multiple inside pages that you can use. Maybe something like that. And then sharing, just kind of know the first group that it's going to populate in here is going to be your team name. So it's going to share the template with literally every single user on your account. That's just the default. Only wanted to share it with like maybe a specific group or just 1 or 2 users, you can just type in their email and then it'll only be shared with those specific users. I'm going to choose not to share with anybody just so you can kind of see what it looks like. So we're going to click save. It's going to convert, give us this cool little check mark. And then if we go over to our template section, let's find, maybe I have to refresh. Kind of see a few different templates I've created. Here we go. So a new template will have this green banner. I think for 2 weeks is what we've chosen to kind of have it be. Maybe it's 1 week. I can't remember. So it'll be really easy for your users to identify in the future which templates are new for them to use. You as an admin, you can still have the ability to edit this template. So if you ever needed to make a change to it, you can just click edit brand template. That'll give you the same editor experience. You can make changes to it. Maybe the locking needs to be adjusted, something like that. But that's mostly it with, actually converting your documents over to templates. So hopefully that was very helpful. And I actually do have a few more minutes if you guys have any additional questions. If not, I will send you guys the recording later on this afternoon, along with a lot of different resources that'll be very handy, such as like editing, fonts, images, data automation, smart fields, basically everything we covered. I'll send you some links to some resources that you can refer to.
Hey, Tyson?
Yeah, go for it.
I've just got one question, and I've looked for this and I haven't seen it, so it might not exist. But the ability to change bleed when you export by individual templates, because I found like the overall settings.
Yes, good question. Hopefully this answers it. So a lot of the time people will kind of go through the brand assets section and go into settings, and they'll just turn on this default bleed. And I don't really recommend that because it's going to add that bleed to every single document. Exactly. And it won't let you change it. So I would just turn it off in your specific document. Make sure you click on the gray part so nothing is selected. You can go to margins and then you can add bleed to just that file. Yeah.
Perfect.
So yeah, I think it's a little confusing why we have it on there and not give you the option to change it, but it's kind of been on my Christmas wish list for that one as well.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful.
No problem. Cool. Any other questions? Cool. Well, if not, I'll send you basically a link to all these different resources along with this slide deck. So they're kind of all in there as well, different links that you can have access to. Cool. Well, thanks again.